If you watch Major League Baseball at all, you would have seen Tim Anderson get drilled by Chris Archer this last week. I personally think it's garbage, and I'm going to tell you exactly why with my partner. There's no secrets here, I'm a Yankee fan, but I know a bad trade rumor when I see one. We're going to address Mookie Betts trade rumors. Okay, so over the last few weeks, we've had a few incidences. We had the Chris Archer. He was striking a lot of guys out. He was having a really good outing, and he was really starting to like showboat off the mound. Like he was doing this whole deal. But there were guys getting pissed off, which for me, like I didn't get mad at it. I can understand when you're playing against that. You can say, well, that's, you're showing me up a little bit. But this is where it gets interesting is Derek Dietrich, the next few innings, he takes him deep. Well, he pimps it himself.
Yeah, he sits there and stares at it for about 5 seconds before he even starts moving out of the batter's box.
Right, which is all they showed on SportsCenter, which we all loved. And this really goes hand in hand with what MLB Network has been saying, is that we need to let the kids play. This is what they meant. They meant that if you're upset by somebody else maybe showing you up, or somebody else like showing their pizzazz in the game, you do the same right back to them. And that's how you let kids play. That's the way kids play. And so when Derek Dietrich did that, Chris Archer was upset, and instead of him coming back like a kid and doing exactly what he'd been doing the last few innings, he hits him. So all of a sudden the suspensions did not add up for what MLB was saying. So where do we go from here? Because MLB has been saying that we're trying to do what you guys want, the fans. Because the fans, there's no doubt. I tweeted earlier this week and the thing blew up. The fans want guys to be able to pimp everything. And that's what's fun. That's what we show on SportsCenter. We want the 500-foot home run, and we want you to watch it. And we want someone to get pissed off, and we want them to strike you out and tell you to sit down. That's what's fun. So, I mean, we're already seeing a boost in home runs. Like, they're understanding that the action is what's making this game really grow. So I'm just not getting why Chris Archer was being a certain way, and then Derek Dietrich did exactly what we wanted. And then Chris Archer retaliated with what we don't want, an old school mentality, which I actually wasn't expecting, because it seemed like Chris Archer was like, I'm having fun. Like you can't really tell it. Like I'm wearing my heart. It was like Marcus Stroman. My heart's on my sleeve, and that's just the way it's gonna be. And everyone wants to see this. And then he does something totally off script. So what does MLB need to do? Do they only need to make the suspensions longer for the pitchers?
Well, I mean, I definitely see both sides of it, and I think something that's important to keep in mind with all of this is that guys are going to pimp home runs. Guys are going to celebrate with strikeouts, and that's what we're going towards. So right now we're seeing this imbalance between the old school and the new school. Well, the new school is starting to show up more and more, and as the Kirk Gibsons fade out, there's still going to be some holdovers where, oh, you're going to pimp a home run off me? Well, I'm going to hit you. And if the MLB wants to promote the bat flips and the pitcher celebrating and that type of competitiveness, then absolutely they need to extend how long you're suspended for intentionally hitting someone. I mean, if a guy's pimping a home run off you and then you hit him and it hits him in the opposite side of his body from as close to the plate, then yeah, you did it on purpose. You didn't miss by 4 feet.
I know people are trying to defend it and saying we can't suspend a guy for 20 games. There's situations where we know exactly what a guy was doing. If it's iffy and we're not exactly sure, it looks like the ball two-seamed across the plate or he hit him with a slider. These are not the situations that we're trying to stop. We don't care about that. But when a dude's throwing 100 miles an hour and you give up a 500-foot bomb and a dude's staring at it until it lands in a lake, now all of a sudden you hit a guy with 98, you haven't walked a guy all day, we know what you were doing.
Yeah, I also see, I mean, in my opinion, I'm not totally against hitting the guy. If with these couple examples, Archer was able to hit him, right in the butt or right in the back, and then Tim Anderson here, this is the most recent one where he threw the bat halfway to the dugout, and then they come back and hit him again. I mean, he's getting hit in the midsection. He's getting hit in a place where it's gonna hurt, but it's not gonna do permanent damage or knock him out of games or anything like that. So while I don't think it's the correct response from the pitcher, because basically you're just hitting a guy for no reason, you're giving up a base runner. Like, I don't think that's something that is helping your team or helping establish any kind of precedent that, hey, we're the dominant ones. I think it's, we're just giving up a base runner and I'm not good enough to strike you out. Mm-hmm. I'm not good enough to come back and get you out.
Because isn't that just a punt?
Yeah, it is.
If I'm pitching and I think I'm good, because obviously I'm skipping off the mound, I'm good, mm-hmm. right? That's the whole point of that. That you don't just do it, you think you're a 5-starter. Chris Archer thinks he's good.
Yeah.
So you go out there, you're shoving. At this point, you're good mm-hmm. throughout this day. Derek Dietrich takes you out into the river. Now, all of a sudden, you're not confident enough to strike him out the next at bat. That's all that tells me.
You're confident enough that you can throw a rock 95 miles an hour at him, and it's like a little temper tantrum. I mean, mm-hmm. And then we get the same old tired bench clearing, not brawl, where mm-hmm. both teams come out and there might be one person like Yasiel Puig who's actually trying to do something.
Yeah.
And everyone else just goes out and yells at each other and looks at each other. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I mean, bench clearing brawls do bring in, not brawls, do bring in views and things like that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's just, if people don't fight, then it's some stupid standoff where,
they want the viewership in a different way.
Yeah, and it's just not worth it.
Yelling at a dude to sit down. If the benches are going to clear, we want it to be because you showed me up in return. Yeah. Now everybody so Derek Dietrich, he takes you deep. We want the benches to clear right then.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we need. We don't need someone getting hurt. If Noah Syndergaard is the guy who's the enforcer, he can hit you in the waist. He can hit you in the back. It hit you in the hand, and you're out for 2 months.
Yeah, well, that is the problem, and we've seen that a couple different times where, like last year with Ronald Acuna against the Marlins, he's hitting home runs against them left and right, and yeah, he's pimping them, but guess what? He shows up the first at bat every game and hits a home run off you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have some swagger about that. Mm-hmm. And so then Urena in there just throwing 96 miles an hour up mm-hmm. at his hands. I mean, you deal with it with the Diamondbacks used to deal with it. It seemed like
a soft way for Urena to handle that situation. Because the way you do it, he's dominating you all series. He's been dominating everybody else. The only thing you can do to look like you've won a situation is to get him out.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you can do. Because if I'm on his team, I'm saying, well, I guess we hurt him and he's sitting there oohing and eyeing. But in the end, when he gets to first base and we lose the game, we're looking back and saying, well, I guess we stopped him, but we didn't really we really ran out the clock. We didn't do anything.
Yeah. And I think a good example of, what we would want to see from the bench clearing that you were talking about was when Carlos Gomez absolutely obliterated the ball against the Atlanta Braves. Yeah. And he stood there and sat there and watched it. Mm-hmm. And then he started barely moving to first base, and he's jogging. He's yelling at the pitcher the entire way around the bases. And Brian McCann stands out in front of home plate and doesn't even let him get to home plate.
That was funny.
And he gets in his face. Yeah, but that's what you want to see. Mm-hmm. I don't need to see the Braves hit him with...
Fight him right then if you care so much.
Yeah, if we're going to fight, let's do it right when it happens. Yep. Let's not do it after, okay, now we drilled him with a baseball, and now I'm a tough guy.
Because we still look that up. We're still watching that on YouTube.
It's just a fantastic moment of an exchange between two teams who didn't like each other at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so obviously with Derek Dietrich's home run, and obviously a bunch of guys are just taking off with the home runs. I know the next thing we're talking about is the bouncy ball baseballs that they've got going on. It seems like anyone who's really in tune with baseball has a clue that these baseballs are not exactly what we were using for the past 15 years. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they've done to these baseballs, and I know Rob Manfred hasn't given a statement. I know he can't. Mm-hmm. But what is it like? Are they more tightly wound? Like, what is going on? Because there's so many outliers in this league. It's not like one guy, because I know we have instances like Cody Bellinger, we have Christian Yelich, we have guys that are setting records, and they're not necessarily 6'5" and 265 pounds of muscle. Like some of these guys, like Christian Yelich, these are like some lengthy guys that are just dropping bombs. And so we're looking at it. We've got guys like Dansby Swanson who are off to record paces. Jose Altuve, I know he was out for a few games last year. We looked it up when he was playing 137 games, that's not a small sample size.
Yeah, it's nearly a full season.
Nearly. And so he gets up to 13 total home runs last year, which when I look at 13 home runs,
10 a game, or not 10 a game. 10 games per home run.
Right. So it's not any kind of record-setting pace here. Like, this is like not a power hitter. When I look at 13, that's not a power hitter. No. he is off to a start of 8 home runs so far, and we're 22 games into the year.
Yeah.
That's like a perennial all-star. He's going to get to the mid-30s. We expect him to slow down maybe a little bit, but still.
But he could get to the mid-30s.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And his previous career high is like around 24.
Right.
So all of a sudden, his power is showing up at a rate that we've never seen before. I mean, even when he was going off a couple times over the past few years, he hit 6 in a month. And, he's already up to 8 here early in the season. He has a few
5 or 6 games left.
He has a few more days in the month to keep going. And I saw an article that said there just seems to be less resistance for the ball flying through the air.
Right.
So the ball is just carrying further. And even the scientists who researched it said that they couldn't figure out why, which is really strange to me.
It almost seems like they're just paid off. Like they just like, go research this crap, and then we'll publish it. So I don't understand that.
I don't understand how they don't have a way of discovering why it's happening, but it is happening.
But I heard they feel different. I heard that they feel more slick, and I heard that the seams are just nuts. Because I talked to a few minor league friends, and they've been saying, like, all along, like, listen, in the minor leagues, I've got a couple guys who have been coming up and down, and they're saying, like, my cutter, moving a few inches, and all of a sudden I look like Mariano Rivera when I get up to the big leagues. And that's something, like, pitches are moving more. Like, we've seen a few videos this week where guys are literally just filleting balls. They look like the right fielder is going to be coming in. And this ball, like Dansby Swanson this week, he hit a ball. For anyone who hasn't seen it, please go watch this video. I mean, he literally hits a ball. It's a fly ball to right field, and it just goes way out. It's a bomb.
Yeah, it looked like a routine fly ball to right, and he his hands were in. He gets jammed. I mean, he wasn't really jammed. He gets through it, but he's got kind of that Derek Jeter stance. Well, it goes out to center field in Cleveland.
It looked like a sac fly.
Easily goes out to center field in Cleveland. He wasn't shooting at the 313 short porch at Yankee Stadium.
Right. So here's the question: Is this good, or is this the way? Because it is more exciting. The common fan is going to be more excited to see home runs. And people who have been watching the game, maybe since like Chipper Jones has been playing, you can now look at the stats and go, well, this guy's putting up better stats than Chipper Jones, Andrew Jones, all these different guys. And they're making comparisons with Ronald Acuna. But when you know the baseballs are maybe altered a little bit, it is hard to let go of the past when guys are just surpassing them so easily with their numbers. So do you think that this is the way that they should get the ratings up?
I mean, I think that baseball is in a position where they do kind of have to do what they can, just anything is on the table for trying to get more people to follow the game, just because it is slower, and it is, for a casual fan, they can't lock in for an entire game.
Yeah, and I understand that.
And that makes sense to me. But the thing that really does actually bother me, and this is the side that I wouldn't typically take as a position player, but for the pitchers, I mean, we're seeing pitchers who were absolutely dominant for, long periods of the time who can't even pitch in 2019.
I know,
and it's not lack of, they're not falling off ability-wise. We got Jacob deGrom. He still throws 97 miles an hour as a starter throughout his entire start.
Yep.
And he'll show up, and he finally had his 26 quality starts snapped the other day because he goes out and gets shelled. And Josh Hader,
and he got shelled twice. It wasn't like there was some mistake. He went out there and got lit.
I mean, there's guys who aren't making it out of the first or second inning constantly because they're getting blitzed by the offense, and there's just home runs flying out left and right. I mean,
if you watch TV, if you watch any local broadcast, they say the same thing. They say these hitters are finally catching up with the data. They're catching up with the numbers and what guys are doing with their tendencies. That's not not what's happening.
No.
You don't just look at numbers and tendencies and say, oh, this guy's got 99 with a backdoor. He's got a backdoor two seam, and then he's got a slider. You don't just start picking up on this stuff. It looks like when you watch the game that when you touch it, it goes out of the park. And it's made it easier to make contact with the ball. It's like when people argue, like, okay, Barry Bonds, when you get stronger, it doesn't make you a better player. But in actuality, that's not really true. Because if I can go the other way and it still goes out of the park, your mechanics should shore up. Everything should get better about you.
Yeah.
The fact that you can touch a ball and go the other way and it can carry out of the stadium makes you less pull happy. Well, everything is like, dudes are like, the swings are better. Like, dudes are just taking their hacks and trying to put the ball in play. And like Dansby Swanson, it looked like he was just trying to put the ball in play. And he didn't really take a violent swing. There was nothing lifting. It didn't seem like a drive line approach where you're just trying to get the ball in the air.
No.
It was like touch it and then we live with the results.
Yeah, well, that's something that if you go watch the greatest hitters and the biggest home run threats throughout history, I mean, go look at Miguel Cabrera when he was in his prime and the way that he was confident that he could take a ball out to right field at Tiger Stadium.
He looked like he was in BP.
Yeah, and that allows your swing to be more compact. You're more able to make contact because you know that a better result is coming. You don't have to create as much power yourself. And so these guys like one of our favorites, Jock Peterson, who as soon as he's making more contact and the ball's going over the wall for him instead of just turning into a fly out, then he doesn't have to take as big of a swing because he strikes out a million.
It makes someone like him
dangerous.
So dangerous.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a guy like that out because he was taking his A cut every time. 2 strikes, didn't matter, first pitch. He was trying to crash you early, and then when he got to 2 strikes, they go nasty breaking balls with velocity, and he's striking out a lot. And he's still probably striking out a lot. But at the same time, he knows if I can just put the bat on the ball, I'm strong. Jock Peterson is strong.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The ball is just way out of there.
His power is not in question. I mean, he legitimately has power. The issue before was making contact. Well, if I know I have even more power, and if I make contact, it's going out, well, then I can take a better swing versus going all out, which is a more difficult way to hit the baseball.
And I mean, even some of these balls that look like fly balls, they're going out. It makes you a better player. When your fly balls go out, it makes you a lot better. I mean, so it's just ludicrous. But we're starting to see some of these teams we anticipated being good that it seems like they're just really not panning out. And I mean, one of those teams is the Boston Red Sox, which they spent a lot of money this last offseason. I know they extended Xander Bogaerts, and we were wondering really where all this money's going, and there's all these extensions. They really handed out quite a few extensions, some iffy ones with Chris Sale.
Yeah,
that everybody said really shook their head at that, especially with the injury history and his history really for not getting through a full season and being able to pitch through the postseason, which is exactly what they're playing for. So I know we saw the Xander extension at 6 years, $120 million, which I thought was a pretty good deal. He's a good offensive shortstop, especially with these baseballs the way they're going to be. He's exactly what you need. But we're starting to look at some of these numbers, and a lot of these contracts really aren't making sense, especially with the agents. We were wondering before we got on here, are some people even represented? Because we've got guys like Ozzie Albies signing a 7-year, $35 million deal. I know there's some team options on the back, which makes it even worse, to be frank. But I mean, we're 7 years, 35. That's not something that's realistic for the market. So I'm not getting like what is going on.
Well, so there have been a few contract extensions this past offseason where you understood it from either the player side or the team, or for both sides. And so that was the Chris Sale made sense for the player because he's stealing money from the Red Sox essentially at $29 million a year.
Yep.
I mean, he lost a lot of velocity after the summer last season, and you're looking at a guy, it's like, well, is he ever going to bounce back and be what he was for us at the middle part of that season last year?
And to throw him a bone, Chris Sale should have been getting paid while he was pitching good. So in a way, it's not the worst thing in the world.
I'm not upset about him getting the money.
But currently, right now, he's not worth the money at this point.
Absolutely, go get your money. Completely on board with that. But it was a weird contract in the scheme of things because Mike Trout signs for 12 years, $426 million, and you're like, okay, well, that's a really good contract for both sides because Trout was going to get a lot more later on, but you still can't. I mean, it's $426 million. I mean, it's incredible.
Really the same concept we said with Acuna, because people were just freaking out about Acuna. Acuna's contract, yes, in terms of his market, that contract is garbage. That's just what it is. It's not a good contract, but it's $100 million.
Yeah. So
$100 million, is he ever really going to need more than $100 million? I mean, if he has any kind of financial advisor, no. He's never going to need more than $100 million. He's going to be lavish for the rest of his life. He doesn't have anything to worry about at all. Ozzie Albies is a different situation. Is $35 million enough for the rest of your life? Absolutely it is. But if you look at the rest of the market, there's going to be guys making 3, 4, 5 times more than he's making with around the same production because he's a great player.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like really selling himself short. I mean, this contract really makes no sense. It's bringing him to his age 31 season. Was that with the opt-out? Or
So the Ozzy Albies deal is 7-year, $35 million. So he had 2 to 4 years of his free agency bought out by the Braves, which is a disaster in itself because if you have 2 years of free agency and you're above average major league player, which he showed he probably could be in his first couple years, making $7 million a year is a complete joke.
I mean, he would make about $50 million in 2 years in free agency.
Yeah, I mean it's a complete joke. And then he has the Braves have club options for 2 years, $14 million after that. So he's still only making $7 million. So he could have 4 years of his free agency bought out by the Braves for $28 million, which is, I mean, this is one of the worst contracts for a player that I've ever seen. By a lot.
There are people saying that the Braves are going to restructure this deal when in maybe 2 or 3 years when this arbitration ends. Here's a newsflash for everybody. No, they're not.
No.
They're never going to do that because they're just going to say, well, look how much money. Because the Braves right now, I know it's disappointing. Everything that's going on, the Braves, they seem like they're right there. If we can just invest in a Craig Kimbrell. They want you to be invested. The team is just competing. If the team just competes, all these extensions, there's no reason for us to extend all this money because we can just lock a guy up for a long period of time. We're going to be good. All you got to do is hit. Look at the NL Central. It's a bunch of guys that can just hit. There's no pitching. So all they say is, well, why don't we just stack our lineup with some of these cheap young guys? If we even compete with some of these guys, we can literally just spend enough just to be decent. And if we're decent, people are fired up enough to come to the games. Yeah. And you come to the games, the Braves are making a ton of money.
Well, the Braves are absolutely stealing from the players right now.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're getting team-friendly deals from Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna, Ozzy Albies. I mean,
Nick Markakis is on a one-year deal.
Nick Markakis is making $4 million a year to hit above 280. I mean, he'll finish above 280. His power numbers won't return to last season, but he's still going to be a solid piece for them out in right field. The only deal on their team that is terrible is Josh Donaldson's because they just wasted money on a position they didn't have a need.
That was actually just gave me a curveball. I had no idea what they were doing there.
Yeah, and you know that's where. Well, now their bullpen's completely falling apart, so here's where we could bring in Craig Kimbrell and help out slide everyone back an inning. I mean, that's the idea. But
I don't want to be hopeless. I hope they do it.
The Braves are making so much money, and now they have their young core locked up for the future. I mean, well into the future. Freddie Freeman's locked up. Albies is locked up. Acuna's locked up. I mean, there's no reason why this team can't spend money on free agents and can't try to make a run. When, look at Ronald Acuna, you get Ronald Acuna and Albies for under $20 million. It's incredible. And so then you add Freddie in there. You're still three of your better players are under 50. So I mean, there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to spend and
they're in a situation right now where they can take a few 1-2 year deal risks, especially with the bullpen. Some of these bullpen guys, they're asking for 3 years. I know there were plenty of reports that came out that Kimbrell was looking at high annual value. But for 3 years, that's not much risk for the Braves. No. They don't have anything going on in the next 3 years anyways. It's not like, it's not like Acuna, it's not like Albies. Those guys are going to be here until we're 30.
Yep, they're way locked in.
Yeah, so there's no reason for the Braves really not to be spending. So that's what worries me if you're a Braves fan, you have to look at the team and say, what else do you need to see? We just lost our closer for the rest of the season. We already weren't good. We don't have anyone in the farm to replace them right now. Why are we not spending for a 2 to 3 year investment on someone who's shown he has a track record of having success? He's already pitched there. He loves being there. The fans will love him. There's really, I can't see any reason. I'll wait and see what people say on Twitter about this video, and hopefully I can see some of the other side. But I'd love to understand what the Braves have that would say, informationally, like, we're not going to invest in these next 2 to 3 years because there's too much risk for us.
Well, I believe that the real reason that Kimbrell hasn't been signed quite yet is because teams don't want to give up a draft pick. So after a certain date, they won't have to give up a draft pick anymore to sign him. Yeah. So that's really what they're waiting.
The same thing with Keuchel?
Yes, exact same thing. You're gonna see after a certain date both those guys. But here's the problem. now you're open to other teams signing him as well. So then it could turn into a bidding war, and then you don't end up getting him. It's a complete disaster.
If they don't
so
get
why
him,
don't
it's
you,
a joke.
So why don't you just give up the draft pick and guarantee that?
What are the chances that what are the chances that this pick works out? Just freaking do it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, prospects are great, but prospects aren't proven Major League Baseball players. You have no idea if that prospect is going to make it. The Braves have 4 starting pitchers right now in Toussaint, Soroka, Fried, and
Toussaint just got
well, there's Allard. They have a bunch of guys down there where they don't know who's good, so that's why they haven't traded any of them.
Sign someone you know is good.
Yeah,
he's better than that draft. I guarantee you. I promise you. Let me say this. Whoever the Braves draft with their pick.
And this goes for any team that wants to sign Kimbrel.
Exactly.
Any team right now should sign him now.
Whoever they pick will not be half of the player Craig Kimbrel is. The chances that they are slim to none.
Yeah.
Just do it. It's not worth the risk. You should just do it. Because to me, the Braves are right there. They really are. They can hit. They really can swing the bat. They've got a lot of guys for cheap that are swinging the bat. They've got young guys swinging the bat. And they always seem to find a guy out of the farm who can come help with a bat. They just can't seem to pitch. And they've got some guys like Max Fried. They've really got some decent starting pitching. I know Newcomb got sent down, and they're really trying to figure out his command. But at the same time, if he gets it figured out, if Max Fried keeps up what he's doing, they're really just a bullpen away. And they can beat the rest of those teams in the NL East. They're right there with the Phillies if they could just pitch.
Yeah.
So it's just really worrying me.
Speaking about risks and prospects, lately it's been coming to everyone's attention that there's rumors swirling that, hey, maybe the Red Sox should trade Mookie Betts. Maybe with this bad start, which I'll remind you is after a World Series victory, which is there usually a hangover after a championship for most teams? I mean, outside of the New England Patriots, there's usually a hangover.
Yeah.
The Eagles didn't look so good after their Super Bowl victory last year. So this is what's going on now is people are saying, hey, if the Red Sox are not in a position to contend, they should move Mookie Betts. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, 20 games into a 162-game season, it's a little ridiculous. And secondly, any team that we've ever seen, I want everybody to remember, when we see a guy get traded, and this is an elite player, like Josh Donaldson when he was playing for Oakland, like any of those players, like in Matt Chapman in a few years, those players are coming off of a team who has already been completely transparent. We're not spending well into the luxury. We're not doing any of that stuff. That's just how they get sent away.
It's like the Indians and Lindor.
Exactly.
They're not going to re-sign him.
Exactly.
So he's a viable trade candidate.
And Jose Ramirez, I know he signed a very team-friendly deal. He's making like $10 million a year. That's very team-friendly, and if he didn't do it, he'd be gone.
But that's not the Boston Red Sox.
No, exactly. Oh, exactly. So if you're one of those teams that's just shipping off a guy, it has to do with your organization. It has nothing to do with, oh, we've got a good player and we suck. There have been great players on crappy teams for years, and it has to do with the market size. Teams are not going to say, we'll just ship off some player if they can just afford him because he's good for business. If you go to a Red Sox game, people are wearing Mookie Betts jersey. Yeah, they're not like, you know what I'm saying. Like even there are players making more money, like way more money than Mookie Betts right now. Or even with his extension, like there's dudes way up there. But they know if there's going to be any of those guys, it's Rick Porcello, it's David Price. Those are the guys that they just ship out of town. Those Zach Greinke, they're going to try to unload the contracts. They'll do whatever they have to do to keep that guy. So the chances Mookie Betts gets traded, 0.
Yeah, I mean, I think something else that you have to consider with the Red Sox on that is, well, yeah, their farm system is depleted because they've brought up all these players, they're developing them, they've made all these moves. They weren't worried about the farm system. That's something that Dave Dombrowski is famous for, is destroying farm systems.
Right.
Well, the Red Sox are still in a position that, hey, maybe if they can get some of these starting pitchers off the books, you have young, talented position players that's what matters. You still have Mookie Betts. You still have Xander Bogaerts. You still have Jackie Bradley Jr. in center field. You have these young players that can be part of a core where, okay, let's keep rotating in.
There's the key. They're young.
Yeah, keep rotating in starting pitching. I don't think the window's closing for the Red Sox necessarily. Now, it might be closing on some of their starting pitching and some of their, hey, they don't have a bullpen. We know. But if you still have those talented position players, then you still have a chance to bring in pitchers on top of that. So
you only need like 2 to 3 bullpen guys.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's ludicrous that you would trade Mookie Betts.
Yeah. So with that, guys, thank you for coming in this week. We hope to see you guys later this week. Thanks.